Jeanette, thanks for joining us again. Let's see if it would be helpful for parents to understand a little tool that you and I have found very helpful in our own life, and especially dealing with children or teenagers, our little behavioral car. What would be something we could start with? We basically, in our first session, covered what we consider those basic needs, which is what drives us, so we can call that our engine. Okay? And we all have these same needs, but yet sometimes you want to drive down one road and your child wants to drive down a different road. What can you tell us about that, where that would be helpful, Jeanette?
Well, we use a car as an analogy of behavior because the parents, and I'm sure that there's parents watching this video that have said many times, that child is driving me up the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They're driving me crazy, driving me to my grave. Well, no one drives you anyplace.
Right.
We each have our own behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
and we choose to behave to get something we want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the person in the other behavioral car is driving to get something they want,
Mm-hmm.
to meet those basic needs. And so sometimes you can be in a real conflict
Mm-hmm.
with your child because you have a different picture in your head of what you want at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But have you also thought about how people, you want to go on a vacation someplace and you want to go to the mountains and the children want to go to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And the behaviors that you choose, you might want to ask yourself the question, am I blaming and criticizing and nagging and threatening and punishing to control? Or am I listening and supporting and negotiating
Mm-hmm.
some of the habits that you use that you want the child to use later in life? Because they're learning from you what
Right.
works. And helping to discover and sharing your own pictures and then negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
And helping yourselves to drive down happy highway with
Right.
your behavioral car instead of miserabling highway. Or a lot of kids turn to pleasure highway
Mm-hmm.
with drugs and unloving sex and violence. But we're trying to get them to drive down the happy highway where they're self-disciplined and they're facing responsibilities and they're listening to what you have to say. And if you can help them see the usefulness of what you want for them and for yourself, to where they will feel better if they choose to do what you've asked them to do, then you're more likely to get them over on the highway of life that you want them on.
So are you saying, Jeanette, that we really can't drive someone else's car? Or have we ever heard parents say, I can control my child?
Well, when you think you're controlling your child, you might take a look at how's it working for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you controlling them, or are you helping them to see the usefulness
All right.
of doing what you're asking them to do? Do you have a good enough relationship with them that they trust you enough to know your way might be the right way?
Right.
You can only influence and persuade people to do things. If we ever discover a way to make people do things, this world would be wonderful.
Right. Right. And I guess in thinking about our car, there's no way right now I could control what you think. Physically, I might be able to control where you are, but, and especially with a child, but really, is that the kind of relationship we want to have?
You want a relationship with a child when you're talking to them, you know they're listening. And hopefully they're not saying blah, 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 blah while you're talking.
Right.
But they're truly listening.
Yeah. Or getting the eye roll is a common,
They have many
common
ways
gesture. Right.
of telling you, back off.
Mm-hmm.
did they learn some of those behaviors?
Right. How about in dealing with differences? Because we all have differences, but especially teenagers and their parents.
Well, the differences come from we all live in our own perceived world. As we perceive it through the information that we have in our head, the knowledge we have, helps us to perceive things in our own way. No one ever perceives things the same way. You might think they do, but they don't. So all we can ever give our children, and all they can ever give us, is information. What your children choose to do with that information is their choice. That's why we talk about choices and how sometimes we make bad choices. But we hopefully will understand that you can't change the past. And when you look at this little car, if you're looking in your rear view mirror all the time at the past, what's going to happen to your car?
You're going to have a wreck.
You're going to have a wreck. And have you ever heard a parent say, I am a wreck?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess that brings us to another topic that we've talked about a little bit, is how we see things, our windshield. What's an important question as parents to ask ourselves about our windshield and how we see things?
Well, as we're driving down the road of life, we look through our windshield at what's out there. And if you have someone else in the car with you, they never see what you're looking at exactly. They're looking at something else. But then along comes a truck and slings mud on your windshield where everything is sort of muddy. Well, rather than choose to anger at what just happened, turn on your windshield wipers and wash it off.
Right.
And you'll be much safer in that behavioral car riding down the road.
So what would be a good question for our parents to ask their children when there's a difference of perception?
Ask them if they're willing to listen to you for 5 minutes, and you'll listen to them for 5 minutes, and you'll ask yourself, what do you want? And I'll share with you what I want, and we'll see if we can negotiate our differences where each of us will get something where we will feel better. And that's what we're always behaving to do, is feel better, to meet one of those needs. But that power need breaks up most relationships.
Right. Wanting to feel important.
Wanting to feel important.
Another thing we have on the roof of the car is facing reality. And I guess one of the things we're asking parents to face the reality of, I really can't control what my child does and thinks, and especially when they're not around. What are some other ways that we need to face reality as a parent?
Face the reality that they're not seeing through their windshield what you're seeing, and that they do not have the same picture in their head of what they want that you want, and help them see the usefulness of changing directions and give them enough information where they can possibly see things your way and cooperate more.
Okay, well, this is an introduction to our car, and later on we'll discuss more of the parts of the car, and hopefully this will be a useful and simple tool for parents to use.